Have you ever noticed that the people who command the most respect rarely demand attention? They don't chase approval. They don't explain every decision. They don't sacrifice their peace just to keep others comfortable. The truth is, attraction isn't created by trying harder. It's created by standing firmer. The strongest relationships begin with the strongest boundaries. Today, we're going to explore 6 powerful boundaries that don't push high-value women away. They naturally draw them closer, because confidence always recognizes confidence. People often spend years searching for confidence in places where it can never truly exist. They wait for compliments before they believe they are capable. They wait for promotions before they believe they are successful. They wait for relationships before they believe they are worthy of love. But confidence built on someone else's opinion is incredibly fragile, because the moment that approval disappears, so does your sense of self. Real confidence begins when you stop asking the world for permission to believe in yourself. It begins when you decide that your value is not something to be voted on by strangers, coworkers, friends, or even people you deeply admire. Your worth is something you recognize before anyone else does. Think about the people who naturally command respect. They rarely spend their time convincing everyone that they deserve attention. They don't constantly announce their achievements or seek reassurance after every decision. They move with quiet certainty because they understand something that many people overlook. Confidence is not about proving yourself to others. It's about proving to yourself that you will stay true to your principles regardless of the outcome. That kind of confidence creates a presence that people notice without you ever asking to be noticed. One of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing validation with connection. Validation says, "Please tell me I'm enough." Connection says, "I know who I am, and I'm willing to share that with you." Those are completely different mindsets. When you constantly seek validation, every conversation becomes a performance. Every decision becomes an attempt to impress someone. Every setback feels like a judgment of your identity instead of simply being part of life. Learning process. Living this way is exhausting because you become dependent on applause that may never come. High-value people, especially high-value women, recognize this immediately. They are not attracted to perfection. They are attracted to authenticity. They appreciate someone who can admit mistakes without losing confidence, someone who can receive criticism without becoming defensive, and someone who doesn't change personalities depending on who is standing in front of them. Consistency creates trust, and trust is far more attractive than constant attempts to impress. Imagine planting a tree. During its early years, storms will come, winds will push against it, and seasons will change. If its roots are shallow, every storm becomes a threat. But when the roots grow deep into the ground, the tree remains standing regardless of the weather. Your self-worth works exactly the same way. If your confidence is rooted in compliments, success, social media attention, or other people's approval, every criticism becomes a storm capable of shaking your entire identity. But if your confidence is rooted in your character, your values, and your commitment to personal growth, outside opinions lose the power to control your emotional state. This doesn't mean ignoring feedback or believing you're always right. Humility remains one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. The difference is that humble people listen to feedback to improve themselves, not to determine whether they have value. They separate who they are from what they do. A mistake becomes something to learn from, not evidence that they are failures. Rejection becomes redirection, not proof that they are unworthy. There will always be someone who misunderstands you, disagrees with you, or simply doesn't appreciate what you bring to the table. That is part of being human. Trying to earn everyone's approval is like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Instead of chasing universal acceptance, focus on becoming someone whose actions align with your beliefs. Integrity creates a confidence that no compliment can give and no criticism can take away. Every morning presents a choice. You can wake up asking, "How can I get people to like me today?" Or you can ask, "How can I become a better version of myself today?" The first question places your happiness in someone else's hands. The second places your future in your own. That single shift changes everything. It changes how you handle failure, how you approach relationships, and how you carry yourself through challenges. The people who leave the greatest impact on the world are rarely those who spent their lives seeking approval. They are the ones who knew their purpose, honored their values, and continued moving forward even when applause was absent. When you stop looking outward for validation and start building inward confidence, you create something no one can take from you. And that quiet certainty becomes one of the most attractive qualities any person can possess, because genuine self-respect doesn't struggle. It simply speaks through every decision you make. Time is the one resource every person receives in equal measure, yet it is also the one resource that can never be recovered once it is gone. Money can be earned again, opportunities can return, relationships can be rebuilt, but the hours that pass today are gone forever. That is why one of the most powerful boundaries you can ever establish is deciding who deserves access to your time and who does not. People often believe that saying yes to everything makes them generous, dependable, or likable. In reality, constantly saying yes without intention often communicates something very. It suggests that you don't value your own priorities enough to protect them. Many people spend their lives reacting instead of leading. They wake up and immediately begin responding to messages, emails, requests, and interruptions. Before they realize it, the entire day has been spent solving other people's, SEMO's problems while their own goals remain untouched. At the end of the week, they wonder why they haven't made progress toward the life they truly want. The answer is simple. If you don't decide where your time goes, someone else always will. Every unnecessary commitment is quietly taking the place of something that actually matters. High-value women and high-value people in general recognize this immediately. They are drawn to individuals who have purpose beyond seeking attention or approval. Someone who has meaningful work, personal ambitions, healthy routines, and passions demonstrates that they have built a life worth sharing rather than a life waiting to be completed by someone else. There is something deeply attractive about a person who values their time because it reflects discipline, direction, and self-respect. It shows that they understand their future is being built one decision at a time. Protecting your time does not mean becoming unavailable or distant. It means becoming intentional. There is a significant difference between making time for people and allowing people to consume all of your time. Healthy relationships are built through choice, not obligation. When you choose to spend time with someone, despite having many responsibilities, that time carries meaning because it is given freely, not out of guilt or pressure. Boundaries make your presence more valuable because people know it is genuine. Think about the most successful leaders, entrepreneurs, athletes, or creators in the world. They all have one habit in common. They guard their schedules carefully. They understand that every hour invested today shapes the opportunities they will have tomorrow. They know that distractions often arrive disguised as urgent requests. Not everything demanding your attention actually deserves your attention. Learning to recognize that difference is one of the greatest forms of wisdom. Many people fear disappointing others by saying no. They worry that refusing a request will make them seem selfish, unfriendly, or unhelpful. But saying yes to everyone often means saying no to yourself. Every unnecessary meeting takes time away from your family. Every avoidable distraction delays your personal growth. Every commitment made out of guilt steals energy from the dreams you claim are important. Eventually, resentment begins to replace generosity because you realize your own needs have been ignored for far too long. There is also another hidden benefit to protecting your time. It teaches others how to respect you. People generally follow the standards you consistently demonstrate. If you cancel your own plans every time someone calls, they learn that your priorities are flexible. If you constantly interrupt your work to satisfy everyone else's demands, they begin to expect immediate access to your attention. But when you politely communicate that your schedule matters, people adapt. Respect is often created through consistency, not explanation. This boundary becomes even more important in relationships. Attraction grows when two people each have meaningful lives instead of expecting one another to become the center of everything. A relationship should complement your purpose, not replace it. High-value women appreciate someone who continues pursuing personal growth, maintaining friendships, developing skills, and honoring commitments. That independence creates mutual respect because both individuals understand they are choosing each other rather than depending on each other for identity. Imagine your time as a garden. Every hour is a seed. Whatever receives your attention eventually grows. If you continually plant seeds of distraction, procrastination, unnecessary drama, and people-pleasing, those are the results you will harvest. But if you intentionally invest your hours into learning, health, meaningful relationships, purposeful work, and personal development, your future begins to transform. The quality of your life is determined less by what you intend to do someday and more by where your time goes every single day. At the end of your life, no one will remember how quickly you answered every text message or how many unnecessary obligations you accepted. They will remember the work you created, the relationships you nurtured with intention, the character you developed, and the difference you made. Those things require focused time. They require boundaries that protect what matters most. So stop treating your schedule like empty space waiting to be filled. Treat it as one of your greatest investments. Learn to say yes with purpose and no without guilt. Every boundary around your time is a declaration that your life has direction. When you value your own time, others naturally begin to value it too. And that quiet discipline sends a powerful message. You are building a future that is too important to sacrifice for temporary distractions. One of the greatest challenges in life is not discovering your values, it is having the courage to live by them when doing so becomes uncomfortable. Anyone can claim to believe in honesty, integrity, loyalty, or respect when life is easy. The real test comes when telling the truth costs you an opportunity, when standing by your principles means standing alone, or when staying true to yourself requires disappointing people you care about. That is the moment your character is revealed. Your values are not defined by the words you speak. They are defined by the decisions you make when no one is watching and when compromise seems easier. Many people slowly lose themselves without even realizing it. It rarely happens overnight. It begins with small compromises. You stay silent when something feels wrong because you don't want to create conflict. You agree with opinions you don't truly believe because you want acceptance. You ignore your standards because you fear losing a relationship or missing an opportunity. At first, these decisions seem harmless, but over time, they become habits. Before long, you look in the mirror and realize you've spent so much energy fitting into other people's expectations that you have forgotten who you really are. High-value women are naturally drawn to people who know what they stand for. Not because those people are perfect, but because they are consistent. There is a sense of security that comes from knowing someone's words and actions align. You don't have to guess what they believe, or wonder whether they will change their personality, depending on who enters the room. They remain grounded because their identity is built on principles rather than popularity. That kind of consistency creates trust, and trust is one of the strongest foundations of any meaningful relationship. Think about a lighthouse standing on a rocky coastline. Storms crash against it. Powerful winds shake everything around it. The waves never stop coming. Yet the lighthouse remains exactly where it was built because its foundation reaches deep beneath the surface. Your values should function the same way. Life will constantly present situations that tempt you to drift away from your principles. There will always be pressure to take shortcuts, to compromise your integrity for quick rewards, or to become someone you're not, simply to gain approval. But if your foundation is strong, those storms may challenge you, but they will never define you. This does not mean becoming stubborn or refusing to grow. Strong values are not the same as rigid thinking. Wise people remain open to learning, changing their opinions when presented with better evidence, and admitting when they are wrong. Growth requires humility. But there is an important difference between evolving your understanding and abandoning your character. One reflects maturity. The other reflects insecurity. The strongest people know how to adapt without losing the principles that make them who they are. One of the most attractive qualities a person can possess is integrity. Integrity means doing the right thing even when nobody would know if you didn't. It means keeping promises because your word matters. It means treating people with respect whether they can benefit you or not. It means refusing to manipulate, deceive, or pretend simply to achieve short-term success. High-value women notice these things. They observe how you treat waiters, co-workers, strangers, and family members. They pay attention to whether your actions match your promises. Character is revealed in the smallest moments, not only in the biggest ones. There will be times when staying true to your values costs you something. You may lose friendships that were built on convenience instead of respect. You may walk away from opportunities that require sacrificing your integrity. You may experience criticism from people who don't understand your decisions. In those moments, it is tempting to wonder whether your principles are worth the price. But every compromise made against your core values comes with a hidden cost. You may gain temporary approval, but you slowly lose trust in yourself. And once self-trust begins to disappear, confidence becomes difficult to maintain. the opposite is also true. Every time you choose integrity over convenience, honesty over comfort, or courage over fear, you strengthen your relationship with yourself. You begin to trust your own decisions because you know they are guided by something deeper than emotion or social pressure. That self-trust creates confidence that cannot be manufactured through appearance, wealth, or status. It is built one decision at a time, often through choices that no one else ever sees. Relationships become healthier when both people have values they refuse to negotiate. Boundaries are easier to maintain because expectations are clear. Communication becomes more honest because there is less fear of pretending. Respect grows because each person recognizes that the other is acting from conviction rather than convenience. Love built on honesty will always outlast affection built on performance. At the end of the day, people may forget your achievements, your job title, or the possessions you accumulated, but they will remember how you made them feel. They will remember whether you kept your promises, whether you stood by your word, and whether you remained the same person during both success and failure. Your reputation is built over years, but it can be destroyed in a single moment of compromised character. That is why protecting your core values is not just a personal decision. It is an investment in every future relationship, opportunity, and goal you hope to achieve. Never negotiate the principles that define who you are. Success gained by abandoning your character is never true success. The strongest people are not those who bend with every opinion or trend. They are the ones who remain rooted in honesty, integrity, and purpose, even when the path is difficult. Those are the people who earn lasting respect, build meaningful relationships, and leave behind a legacy that no amount of external success can replace. One of the most misunderstood ideas about kindness is the belief that helping people means solving every problem they face. Many of us grow up believing that if we truly care about someone, we should rescue them whenever they struggle. We step in before they have a chance to learn. We carry burdens that were never ours to carry. We make excuses for repeated poor decisions because we don't want them to suffer. At first, this feels compassionate. It feels generous. But over time, something unexpected happens. Instead of helping people become stronger, we accidentally make them more dependent. What began as support slowly turns into enabling, and both people end up carrying a weight that was never meant to be shared. Healthy relationships are built on encouragement, not rescue. There is a significant difference between standing beside someone and carrying them on your minds. Supporting someone means offering guidance, listening with empathy, and believing in their ability to overcome challenges. Rescuing someone means taking responsibility for choices they should be making themselves. When you constantly rescue people from the consequences of their actions, you unintentionally communicate that you don't believe they are capable of handling life on their own. While your intentions may be good, the long-term result often limits their growth instead of expanding it. Think about how children learn to walk. Every child falls. Every child struggles to balance. Imagine if a parent decided that falling was too painful to watch and carried the child everywhere instead. That child would never develop strength, coordination, or confidence. The very struggle that seems uncomfortable is actually the process that builds independence. Life works the same way for adults. Failure teaches responsibility. Mistakes create wisdom. Consequences encourage growth. When we remove every obstacle from someone's path, we often remove the very lessons they need most. High-value women are naturally drawn to people who understand this balance. They appreciate someone who is compassionate without becoming controlling. They admire someone who can offer support without sacrificing their own emotional health. A person who constantly tries to rescue everyone often appears overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted, and unable to maintain healthy boundaries. On the other hand, someone who knows when to help and when to step back demonstrates emotional maturity. They understand that love is not measured by how much they carry for others, but by how much they inspire others to become stronger. One of the hardest lessons in life is accepting that you cannot change people who refuse to change themselves. You can provide advice, encouragement, opportunities, and unconditional support, but you cannot make someone choose responsibility. Every individual must eventually decide whether they are willing to grow. Many people waste years trying to save relationships where the other person has no intention of improving. They believe that if they love harder, sacrifice more, or remain patient long enough, everything will eventually change. Sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. And in the process, they lose themselves while trying to save someone else. This does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. Compassion remains one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. But real compassion includes wisdom. Wisdom recognizes that helping someone once is generosity while repeatedly protecting them from the consequences of harmful choices often prevents them from learning accountability. Imagine constantly paying someone else's debts every time they spend irresponsibly. At first, you may feel helpful. Eventually, however, they begin expecting someone else to solve problems they created. The lesson is never learned because the consequences never arrive. Healthy boundaries protect both people. They allow one person to continue growing without becoming consumed by another person's struggles. They also give the other individual the dignity of solving problems, making decisions, and discovering their own strength. There is incredible confidence that develops when someone realizes, I handled this myself. That confidence cannot be given. It must be earned through experience. Many people fear setting this boundary because they worry they will appear selfish. They believe saying, I can't fix this for you, means they don't care. But sometimes, the most loving response is not solving the problem, but believing in someone's ability to solve it themselves. Encouragement says, I know this is difficult, but I believe you're capable. Rescue says, I don't think you can do this without me. One creates independence. The other creates dependence. Strong relationships thrive when both people take responsibility for their own lives. They celebrate each other's victories, offer support during difficult seasons, and provide honest guidance when needed. But they never confuse love with control. They understand that each person must carry their own responsibilities. This creates equality instead of imbalance. Respect grows because neither person feels responsible for managing the other's entire life. There will always be people who mistake your boundaries for rejection. They may become frustrated when you stop solving every crisis or fixing every mistake. They may accuse you of changing simply because you are no longer allowing unhealthy patterns to continue. But boundaries often reveal the true nature of relationships. Some people only stay close as long as they benefit from your constant sacrifice. Others respect your limits because they genuinely value you, not just what you do for them. The strongest people are not those who rescue everyone they meet. They are the ones who empower others to become stronger. They teach responsibility instead of dependence. They offer encouragement instead of control. They provide support without losing themselves in the process. That kind of strength creates healthier friendships, stronger families, and deeper relationships, because it is built on mutual respect rather than emotional obligation. When you stop rescuing people from every consequence, you are not abandoning them. You are giving them something far more valuable, the opportunity to discover their own resilience. And there is no greater gift than helping someone realize they are stronger than they ever believed possible. Your emotional energy is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Yet it is often the one people give away without thinking. Most people are careful with their money. They think before making a large purchase, compare options, and avoid unnecessary expenses. But when it comes to their emotions, they spend them freely. They invest hours worrying about opinions that don't matter, replay arguments that are already over, trying to convince people who have no desire to understand them, and carrying burdens that were never theirs to carry. By the end of the day, they feel exhausted, not because they worked too hard, but because they allowed too many unnecessary situations to occupy their minds. The truth is, where your emotional energy goes, your quality of life follows. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is recognizing that not every situation deserves your reaction. There will always be people who criticize you, misunderstand your intentions, or disagree with your choices. If you respond to every negative comment, defend yourself against every accusation, or try to correct every misunderstanding, you will spend your entire life fighting battles that never needed to be fought. Silence is often stronger than explanation. Peace is often more valuable than being right. Learning the difference requires wisdom. Many people believe that emotional strength means never feeling hurt, angry, disappointed, or frustrated. But emotional strength has nothing to do with the absence of emotions. It is about managing them wisely. It is the ability to pause before reacting. It is choosing thoughtful responses over impulsive reactions. It is recognizing that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent leaders. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can always work toward controlling how you respond. That choice determines whether your emotions become your greatest strength or your greatest weakness. High-value women are naturally drawn to people who possess emotional stability. This does not mean someone who never experiences stress or sadness. It means someone who does not allow every inconvenience to destroy their peace. There is something incredibly attractive about a person who remains calm during conflict, who listens before speaking, and who refuses to let temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. Emotional stability creates a sense of safety because it shows maturity, patience, and self-control. People trust those who remain steady when life becomes unpredictable. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with heavy stones. Each stone represents an unresolved argument, unnecessary worry, past disappointment, or toxic relationship. At first, the weight feels manageable. You convince yourself that carrying one more burden won't make much difference. But over time, the backpack becomes heavier and heavier until even simple tasks feel exhausting. This is exactly what happens when you refuse to protect your emotional energy. Every unnecessary conflict, every negative influence, and every unresolved resentment quietly adds another stone. Eventually, you begin living with constant fatigue without realizing that much of the weight could have been set down long ago. One of the healthiest boundaries you can establish is deciding who receives access to your emotional space. Not everyone deserves your deepest thoughts, your constant attention, or unlimited access to your peace of mind. Some people consistently encourage, inspire, and challenge you to become better. Others constantly complain, create drama, spread negativity, or expect you to carry emotional burdens they refuse to address themselves. Compassion does not require unlimited access. You can care about someone while still protecting your own mental and emotional well-being. Social media has made protecting emotional energy even more challenging. Every day, people compare their lives to carefully edited moments from strangers. They argue with people they have never met. They consume endless streams of negative news, controversy, and opinions. Without realizing it, they begin carrying stress that has little connection to their actual lives. Guarding your emotional energy sometimes means turning off notifications, stepping away from endless debates, and choosing real conversations over constant digital noise. Peace often grows in the spaces where distraction ends. Forgiveness also plays an important role in protecting emotional energy. Many people mistake forgiveness for excusing harmful behavior, but true forgiveness is something entirely different. It is choosing to stop allowing someone else's actions to control your inner peace. Holding on to resentment is like carrying a burning coal while hoping someone else gets burned. The longer you hold it, the more damage it causes you. Forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation, and it certainly does not mean removing healthy boundaries. It simply means refusing to let bitterness occupy valuable space in your heart and mind. There will always be situations that require courage, difficult conversations, and emotional investment. Some battles are worth fighting because they protect your values, your family, or your future. But many conflicts exist only because someone else wants your attention, your reaction, or your energy. Wisdom is learning to recognize the difference. Every time you choose not to engage in unnecessary drama, you preserve emotional strength for the moments that truly matter. Your emotional energy is directly connected to your ability to lead, love, create, and grow. When your mind is constantly consumed by negativity, there is little room left for creativity, gratitude, or meaningful relationships. But when you intentionally guard your peace, something remarkable happens. You become more patient, more focused, and more present. Your decisions improve because they are no longer driven by emotional exhaustion. Your relationships become healthier because you bring calm instead of chaos. And your confidence grows because you are no longer allowing every outside influence to determine your inner state. The strongest people are not those who react to everything. They are the ones who choose carefully where their attention goes. They understand that emotional energy is limited, and they refuse to waste it on distractions that add no value to their lives. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Because when your mind is clear and your heart is steady, you become capable of giving your best to the people, the purpose, and the future that truly deserve it. One of the hardest decisions a person will ever make is choosing to walk away from something they once believed would last forever. It may be a relationship that no longer brings peace, a friendship built only on convenience, a job that slowly drains your spirit, or even an old version of yourself that no longer fits the future you want to create. Walking away is rarely easy, because our minds naturally become attached to familiarity. Even when something is unhealthy, we often convince ourselves that staying is safer than facing the uncertainty of change. But growth has always demanded courage, and sometimes the greatest act of courage is not holding on. It is letting go. Many people spend years trying to fix situations that have already taught them everything they needed to learn. They keep giving second chances that become third, fourth, and 10th chances. They continue investing in people who repeatedly show a lack of respect, honesty, or commitment. They stay because they hope things will return to the way they once were. Hope is powerful, but hope without action often becomes denial. There comes a moment when you must stop asking whether something can be saved and begin asking whether it is still helping you become the person you are meant to be. High-value women are naturally attracted to people who have the strength to make difficult decisions, even when those decisions involve temporary pain. This is because emotional maturity is not measured by how tightly someone can hold on. It is measured by how wisely they know when to let go. A person who refuses to leave unhealthy environments often communicates fear rather than loyalty. But someone who can respectfully walk away from situations that consistently violate their demonstrates confidence, self-respect, and emotional intelligence. Imagine climbing a mountain while carrying a heavy backpack filled with unnecessary rocks. At first, the weight feels manageable. You tell yourself that carrying one more rock won't make much difference. But as the climb becomes steeper, every extra pound begins to slow your progress. Eventually, you realize that reaching the summit is not about becoming stronger alone. It is also about becoming lighter. Life works in much the same way. Every toxic relationship, unhealthy habit, limiting belief, unresolved resentment, and unnecessary obligation becomes another weight you carry. The higher you hope to climb, the more willing you must become to release what no longer serves your purpose. One of the greatest misconceptions about walking away is that it represents failure. People often believe that leaving means quitting. In reality, walking away from something unhealthy is often one of the greatest victories a person can achieve. It takes far more courage to leave a comfortable situation that limits your future than it does to remain trapped inside it. Comfort can become one of the greatest enemies of growth. It whispers that staying is easier, that tomorrow will somehow be different, or that enduring constant unhappiness is simply part of life. But extraordinary lives are rarely built inside comfortable prisons. There will always be voices encouraging you to stay where you are. Some people fear your growth because it reminds them of the changes they are unwilling to make themselves. Others simply become comfortable benefiting from your willingness to tolerate unhealthy behavior. The moment you establish boundaries or decide to move forward, they may accuse you of changing. The truth is, you have changed, and that is exactly the point. Personal growth always requires leaving behind the version of yourself that accepted less than you deserved. Walking away is not only about relationships. Sometimes the person you need to leave behind is the one staring back at you in the mirror. Perhaps you have carried self-doubt for years. Perhaps you continue believing stories about yourself that were created by past failures, criticism, or disappointment. Maybe you still define yourself by mistakes you made long ago. Growth requires releasing those outdated identities. You cannot step confidently into your future while constantly introducing yourself through the lens of your past. Every chapter of your life prepares you for the next one, but no chapter was ever meant to become the entire story. The strongest leaders, entrepreneurs, athletes, and creators all share one common trait. At some point, they chose to leave behind something comfortable in order to pursue something meaningful. They left environments that limited their potential. They walked away from habits that no longer aligned with their goals. They accepted temporary uncertainty because they believed the future held greater possibilities than the past. Every significant transformation begins with the courage to release what no longer belongs. Healthy relationships also depend on this principle. Love should never require sacrificing your dignity, your values, or your peace of mind. Mutual respect grows when both people willingly choose one another while continuing to honor their own identities. But when respect disappears, when trust is repeatedly broken, or when your emotional well-being consistently suffers, staying out of fear only deepens the damage. Walking away does not erase the memories or deny the good moments that once existed. It simply acknowledges that the future deserves the same care and attention as the past. Life has a remarkable way of creating space for new opportunities once we stop clinging to what no longer fits. New relationships, greater purpose, deeper confidence, and unexpected possibilities often appear only after we have released what was preventing us from moving forward. Empty hands are capable of receiving new gifts, A heart no longer occupied by constant disappointment becomes open to genuine connection. A mind no longer trapped in unhealthy patterns becomes free to imagine a better future. At the end of the day, every decision to walk away is really a decision to walk towards something greater, toward peace instead of chaos, toward purpose instead of comfort, toward growth instead of stagnation, toward self-respect instead of self-sacrifice. Your future will never be created by endlessly holding on to what belongs in your past. It will be shaped by the courage to recognize when a season has ended and the wisdom to step confidently into the next one. Sometimes the most powerful boundary you will ever establish is simply having the strength to binte, this no longer aligns with the life I'm building, and then walking forward without looking back.